All right, welcome. This is James Brown and his son Nick.
And we're undertaking to develop a chicken caravan business, which means we're going to produce pastured eggs on a leased farm initially, and we're going to fix up a whole pile of machinery initially before we set out to do the farming. So this is the beginning of a series of videos to tell you just how and show you just how we did it.
It'll be kind of chronicling the process and give us a bit of history of, all the work we did, repairing tractors and building cool rooms and solving various problems along the way.
Great, so let's get on with it.
Welcome aboard.
Well, we drove the tractor here, started up fine, and then we drove it up there and back here, turned it off, won't start. We're getting fuel.
Tractor won't start.
Tractor won't start.
I'm kind of just echoing you there.
Check a spark plug, see if there's any spark. Just about ran the battery. So here we are trying to start the tractor that mysteriously stopped after we drove it into this little patch of bush. It's actually a grey Fergie of some distinction. It's number 401 of a production of 65,000. That's a bit of a relic.
It's a wonderful little thing. So here we're trying to see if there's any spark. Now I'm just taking the spark plug out, and then we're going to earth it on the chassis somewhere and see if she sparks.
And of course, unbeknownst to us, much later on, we discovered that it was a crack in the distributor cap, but right now we don't know that.
Yeah, there was a bit of water getting into the, what are they called, the contacts?
Yeah, the breaker points, the points. Because the grey Massey Ferguson invented 3-point linkage, which is the levers in the back, driven by hydraulics in the back gearbox or the differential, and that revolutionised farming. Just about every tractor nowadays has 3-point linkage. This tractor came with a whole array of things: a chisel plough, a slasher, a grader, a moldboard plough, a carryall, and we bought it off this old fella called Marshall Phillips, who was 82 years old and about 5 foot tall with his hands up. Nick will tell you the story.
It was quite an adventure getting out there. Something like a 6-hour, 7-hour drive and over through. And when we finally got up there, it was, I think we were driving the Prius in there all through into this lovely little valley. And he was quite the goer, Marshall. Really short little fella, but he was trying to lift the implements on himself. This massive bloody plough or something. Ahoy.
So we're just testing first to see if we can make the spark plug spark. As I said, unbeknownst to us, this wasn't actually the problem, but we maybe bumped the distributor cap while we were cleaning the spark plug and caused it to start.
Fixed it unintentionally. Yep, old Marshall Phillips tractor. He probably hasn't done any maintenance on it in 30 years.
Nor on any of the other things we got with it. We've had to recondition everything.
No, not till this then. Well, that could have been good.
Yep, but he wasn't afraid of getting under that plough to lift it onto the
He must have weighed all of 50 kilos.
He did throw in a quad bike with the tractor. So. Ahoy!
There we go. Now we've been doing a lot of work on this tractor as far as brakes, because it never had any brakes. And we replaced the brake linings, we replaced the brake drums, and now we've discovered there's oil getting out of the back gearbox along the axle columns into the brakes. So now we're putting seals on the axles. Going down the hill here, remember, no brakes.
Dad's been using the carryall on the back normally as the brake. If you're going down a bit too fast, put the carryall down. It was a pretty exciting one of that, but I don't think I managed to get on video. We nearly ended up in the trees there. Ah, there's the carryall brake in action. You're sort of in gear, are you, when you're going back down the hill? Or?
I don't know. Probably, yeah.
The carryall gently lowers as well when the engine isn't running.
You'll notice a little thing on top of the rollover, because these tractors their nickname was Widowmakers, because they've got a tendency to, if you pull too hard, they'll turn over backwards, they'll rear up on the front wheels, which we'll show you that in a bit of a later video. We've got a little solar panel up the top, a 6-volt charging system, because these are all 6-volt tractors with positive to earth, a bit different than the normal, all negative to earth these days. So our aim is here to replace the, here comes Nick with the brake. It's a block of wood.
Got to have those tractor brakes on.
In spite of all this effort, we still haven't got very good brakes.
I think it's just me here for a while. You were off
You're helping Isabel.
doing something over. So these are the new tractor seals and the new bearings. We heated those bearings up a little bit.
Later on. One of them. Yeah, so the plan is here to extract the axle and replace the seals, and while we're at it we'd do the bearings. A lot of trouble to get the axle out. But the problem we've got is that the seals are leaking, so the oil's coming out of the gearbox and into the brakes, making them slip.
There you go.
It says, before reassembling, apply a thin coat of varnish to the sliding surface of the jaws. What is that?
I finally got a bit well dressed after we'd taken all these videos.
Yeah.
That's when
Got a bit of a nice shirt and some pants that weren't covered in paint. I'm forever getting asked if I'm a painter with this outfit. This is just the work outfit.
before reassembling, apply a thin coat.
The tyres are full of water, so they weigh sort of, 400 or 500 kilos each. Give it better traction, you fill the tyres with water. Give it better traction.
Remove the head with an anti-wrench.
But as I mentioned before, the traction is a negative and positive thing, because the front wheels tend to rear up, but later on we put wheel weights on the front to stop it doing that.
I'm just waiting for the compressor to build up a bit here.
Drill into the floor and drill into the steel before you put it in.
The voice you can hear in the background is my daughter, Nick's sister. She's working on the egg sorting room, which you'll see later.
So just when you do your first corner,
She's a bit of a muso, which is why we've got the ambient jazz
Drill in.
drill, rivet,
in the background.
work your way along. And that way you'll get the corners.
How do you put the
What you're trying to avoid here is for the wheel to fall on you. Or
Or
roll off down the
Head
hill
off
out
down the
of
hill
control.
into into the neighbour's fence.
Yeah, well, there's other types.
This is sort of the workshop area here.
That's a biggie one.
Yeah, the kids and I built the two houses. You see this one just here, and then another one we just drove up past.
Shorter.
Like we built them. We didn't get contractors to do it.
I think you got it. No, that's big.
You sort of kind of forget that you built them a bit.
Mm.
They're just there.
Yeah, probably we should have done this type of video so you can sort of look back. See how heavy the wheel is? So what you don't want to happen here is to lose control of it and for it to roll down this fairly steep hill.
Drop it
Yeah.
on your foot.
Or drop it on your foot.
I got a bit close there, maybe. Oop.
So that round thing you can see is the brake drum. We actually put new brake drums on it to try and give us some brakes. But I mean, we've done everything pretty well. We just need to know how to adjust the brakes. So you take these drums off. That little countersunk screws keep them on. Two little screws which we needed to heat cherry red to get to undo.
There's a page on this. So the tractor manual is a book. It's a bit of about a centimetre thick, the book. It's back when everything in the manual was in the book. And it's got about half a page, maybe a page on the tractor brakes. And we've both read that page multiple times, trying to understand the braking mechanism, how to adjust it. It's a very dense few paragraphs.
Yep,
The
rolling.
book and the tractor was, here's my
Cheers,
daughter
mate.
Madeline, next sister. Got her work clothes on.
Thought I'd put that in.
Right, I will.
Take these bolts off. Get the axle out.
Twice a day. Yeah. How many times? I think I want
Nick got a bit frustrated after undoing these bolts. He threatened to pull out of the project. They were just really difficult, hard to get at. You had to put lock nuts on to try and extract them. I'd say it'd be the first time this has been done since Marshall bought it about 35 years ago. Although he did replace the clutch.
Mm. Yeah, I think this time around we've sort of got the hang of it by now, whereas the first time it was a bit touch and go.
that's okay. We'll all go out. Kyle and I go out.
And we are doing this without sophisticated equipment like presses and the like. It's a bit of a farm workshop really in the town.
And here we go.
But yeah, so I think the plan for
Halfway there. 2 bolts up. 2 bolts out. So 3 of these bolts are stuck in. So just going to put another nut on the back of it.
Well, maybe this was the time when I was getting pretty frustrated with it.
Oh, you got in the evening, you got had a lot of trouble putting them back on.
Yeah.
So that last bolt finally came out.
Had to do a take or two with this one.
The axle. I'd love one. nut bar actually.
One nut bar.
Thank you, thank you.
So here I'm just teaching Nick how to use the oxyacetylene torch. You can do anything if you've got an oxyacetylene torch, just about. Because on this tractor and all the implements that came with it, everything is rusted up, all the bolts and nuts, and so this is a bit of an agricultural way of extracting the bearings. We should be using a press. We haven't got a press, so this is the way I used to do it on the farm. Now this is a collet we're heating. It's a collet that you heat up so it expands, and then you drop it in. It holds the bearing in place. Hey, Maddie. So we heat up the collet until it's red hot. Even then it's pretty tight.
I'm putting the welding gloves on.
I think they're blacksmith gloves.
Kind of like a mask, isn't it?
Nice and heavy. We had a bit of trouble getting this one off. Guess we had more trouble putting it back on.
No, it went on all right.
Turn it over then.
From the angle it sort of looks like you get a bit close to my face with the...
I probably did. This is the farm blacksmith shop in the city, in Yass. And we're trying to encourage the collet to fall off now that it's quite hot. We've set a light to the bearing, but that doesn't really matter. The bearing's got to come out anyway.
Gave you a face full of smoke just then. I'm wearing the goggles because apparently the heat's supposed to be pretty bad for your eyes. Over time. So they look a bit steampunk or something. Sandy was very impressed with the spline on the axle.
It's still pretty good. Yeah. Hasn't worn. There it is.
That was the gasket, or the shim.
Yeah, they have these brass shims. Nick cut his finger on it. They get pretty sharp. But the brass shim's got to be exactly right. There goes the collet. The brass shim keeps the end of the axle where the spline is there going up against too far into the gearbox. There's one of these axles go in each side of the differential gear. You can see the collet's burning its way through a bit of plywood we've got there.
You can taste the smoke from here.
That's the shim, which we've got to remember to keep on the right side.
Yeah, that shim's a lot narrower than the other shim.
Yeah, because they pack it up. They pack it up so that you get the right clearance at the end of the spline. Otherwise it'd just jam. Tractor would jam. We tracked the bearing out last time. We did. Came out.
Just came out, yeah.
I'll put it upside down again. So there's the collet, and then there's the bearing, which is the roller bit with the roller blades inside. We used to just stick them on the end of bits of wood and use them in our billy carts. And what we're trying to do is get the bearing assembly off now. The bit that the bearing's inside.
The collet's the thing on the bit of plywood, the little metal ring. Burnt itself a little circle. We had a bit of trouble getting this bearing assembly off. Or did it just come, did it?
Yeah, eventually.
What was the other thing we were figuring out that took half a day?
The shim. The shim was really difficult.
Was it the
There's
shim?
the roller bearing sits inside a shim, and what you do is you freeze it, make it small. The shim. You'll see that a bit later. But with a freezer or a fridge,
This is a new one.
and the gas axe, the oxyacetylene, and a hammer, you can do just about anything.
Except cut straight lines with the oxy.
Yeah.
Remember we were trying to get something through from one direction? I think it's coming there.
Yeah, but we didn't realise there was a hole through the seal to hit the shim out
Yeah, that was it.
on the first one.
Was
So
it
it's
the
a bit of a learning process. The what is it called? The part of the bearing to sort of
The bearing housing?
no, the
thing
little
that the bearing
silver
sits
bit.
in.
Yeah, the thing.
Timber.
Yeah, that was it we were trying to get out.
So now we've got the bearing
Bearing
housing
casing or something.
out. Yeah.
Level.
Yeah, we're not professionals by any means.
But by the end of each job, like this job, we know how to do it. But then, of course, it's been done already. So
Something new.
we put the end of the axle a little bit close to the air compressor hose. There. Is that the air compressor hose? No,
That's
the
the
oxy.
oxy hose. Yeah.
So that bit inside that you can see is the part that the bearing rotates in. And at the back of that there's a seal. So the oil from the diff runs along the actual housing and runs into that bearing and lubricates it. Rightio, so what we're doing, we've got the roller bearing out. It's a bit too this is the roller bearing there. Taking that out, the roller bearing operates in a shell, a high tensile steel shell. Show them the shell. They can't see the shell there. But this is what it looks like, okay? We've got it in the freezer at the moment because we're shrinking it. So now what we're doing now is we're gonna, on this shell here that's in there, we've got to lay a few arcs on the shell, and when the electrode lays the arc, it shrinks the metal up a little bit. Hopefully it'll come out now. Rightio, you've got to tilt that up, Nick, put the earth on it.
Welding helmet's going down the hill.
Just wind it up a bit, Nick, the power. The end lock, no?
You can see the little refresh on the welding thing with this camera shutter.
Yeah.
Helmet's not turned on.
Always looks great welding.
Mm. So you weld these little beads across the shim. I call it the shim, or it's not really a shim, it's the
Casing or something?
casing or the steel, high tensile steel casing the bearing operates in. You put one about every inch all the way around it. It's a bit of an agricultural way of doing it.
It's turned over.
But actually actually contracts. When you weld something, it pulls the metal together, so it actually shrinks this little bearing housing, maybe bearing. What would you call it? It's got a name.
Bearing shell.
Could be the shell.
You've got to be a bit conscious of that when you're welding something. It bends your weld over,
Yeah, it shrinks the steel a little bit.
pulls it all together.
Okay, see if you can tap it out.
Yeah, this is what we had a bit of trouble with till we finally figured out that there was a groove for it on the other side.
Yeah, groove through the seal, because the seal's at the back of it. The oil's got to flow into the bearing to lubricate the bearing, and the seal at the back of the bearing stops the oil from going through and then running into the brakes, which is what's been happening.
It's a little bit hard to describe in words sometimes, but yeah, there's a nice hole you can put the screwdriver through to knock the casing out, as well as the seal. But at the moment I was just trying to get in through the sideways. Can't figure out how the seal comes out. Having a lot of trouble getting this bloody seal out.
Now, if you're going to use a hammer, it's better to use a nice hammer like this one. A nice big hammer for these sorts of jobs.
Got a bit of good momentum to it.
Now that's the seal. No, that's the seal.
Angled
We
bastard.
sort of mucked it up a bit. Was that the seal? Or
Yep,
We're,
that was the seal.
Just cooling the seal down a bit.
You must have got the casing out, not on video.
Now here's the new seal in the freezer.
Nice and chilly.
Now even though it's...
Okay.
What we've done, compressor's going at the moment, we've ground the old seal down to be able to fit inside, and we've ground a little bit off the edge, fit inside the bearing so that we can hit the new seal in. But this is doing things without the proper equipment. Really we should have a press.
Oh, so we probably got the seal out, but not the casing out?
No, we've got the casing out. Now the big trick is we've got to put
Funny how even we don't know what's going on.
put the new the outside of the bearing. Hey Nick, don't get it out yet. Get the old one. The old one we took out.
Yeah.
So we'll use that to hit this one in.
Yeah, do you want to grind a bit of it off?
No, that'd be alright.
Okay. Going in. Hey.
Yeah, so putting it in the freezer's a bit of a good smart move. Shrinks it a bit. Even so, you have to hit it in with a pretty big hammer.
You beauty.
Needs gas.
Does this mould work?
Around there, Nick. Now Nick's putting lots of grease around, make it all slippery so we can get the bearing in. We've got to push the bearing into its casing.
It's been well cooled by now. This is sort of what a typical job looks like a bit, you know. Tools everywhere.
It's sort of an organised mess, really. We haven't got very much room to work. In the background there, you'll see the egg sorting room that we have to build. We're actually converting a container into a, it's really a kitchen standard. I look like a bit of a dagwood there. I've got a crook foot, unfortunately, so a bit limited. In a later video you'll see the cool room, the egg sorting room develop. Lined it all with cool room panels. Ended up being a beautiful job. Nick's sister's doing the lining at the moment and doing the trim.
Oh, this must be where we're putting it on the wrong way around.
Really?
I think, didn't we put, I think we put the bearing in the wrong way around or something, or the housing. After giving it a good old hit. I mean, I say we, it's probably me.
So we're taking it out again.
After giving it a few good hits there.
You got to have a fair bit of patience when you.
Bearings all in. Now we slide it back into the housing.
Yeah, a bit of patience when you're teaching a newie how to do
talking to
things
myself,
the old way.
I reckon the pliers, that's what I did last time.
So here we're heating the collet up again.
So we're just heating up the collet to
We've
put
got
back on.
the little forge in
Hold
front of
bearing
you.
in place.
We've got a brick on the bit of plywood.
Now it's nice and hot. Stick her on.
I was showing this video to my sister-in-law in Newcastle. She was just amazed. How do you know how to do all this stuff? And I said, 20 years farming. New land farming. You learn how to do stuff without many useful tools.
Funny because tools are so cheap these days, you know.
Yeah.
Hoi hoi, what an effort. The axle Becky.
Time for a cup of tea.
That's the cup of tea there. Cup of tea is a very important part of the whole process.
The Nick's sliding the axle back in. Just got to get it turned around so that the spline at the other end. Also, you got to get the right shim. If you mix up the shims, you can jam up the differential. I think this is where he cut his finger on the shim. Yeah. Look at that. Now he's got to put all the bolts in. I think this is where he lost his cool a bit. His enthusiasm for the project. Told me on the way home he'd leave me in the lurch.
I'm not sure it ever got that bad. But yeah, you have a pretty long, frustrating day, no progress. Or what feels like no progress.
This is the new rim. Because there's so many Massey Fergusons like this old grey model, it's called a grey Fergie. You can buy parts quite cheaply. If they manufacture them, there's so many tractors, it's worth manufacturing. There's 60,000 tractors out there, and not all of them going, of course. See that nice exhaust pipe there? I knocked that off a bit later, going under a tree. So, you know, that big heavy drum only costs $120. And the exhaust pipe only was $80, you know, so it's a very inexpensive fixing, keeping them all going. I don't think we needed to put drums in it, because I think the problem from the start was the oil and needing new seals.
Another seal somewhere.
It's had new brake pads and new, you know.
Yeah, new drums, new seals, new bearings. It'll go for another 50 years. I think it's a 1948 it would have been made, this tractor.
Yeah, wait a sec.
I was wondering about that the other day. How old? So what, 70 something?
Yeah, in about 1948 it would have made it. In France, probably, not here in Australia.
Had the
Or England.
drums on.
Come out on the ship?
Yep.
Wheels full of water.
As I said before, absolutely revolutionised farming, the 3-point linkage. Yeah, just a beaut little tractor. I love this tractor. I've owned lots of different tractors, but this one's got a bit of a personality, I reckon.
It was very happy to have its coat of grey paint.
Yeah, painted it grey again. Couldn't make the generator work, so we put the solar one on instead. Generator still looks like it's working.
Trickle charger.
But everything we had from Marshall was just it was all working, but it was just ready to fall to bits, a lot of the stuff. He was a funny old bloke. He was 82, probably weighed 60 kilos, a little weeny fella. I think he used to be a jockey, but he got all his stuff. He bought his block, 50 acres up in the hills near Newcastle, and he bought all this gear from the neighbour, all of the implements. So the tractor was a pretty good deal, really, because it came with about 7 different implements, all very useful.
Look at that, repaired tractor brakes on one side.
We had a bit of an adventure getting the tractor back to us. We blew a wheel on the trailer coming down some mountain. 4-wheel trailer, but
there was a really steep pull-up coming out of his farm, up this, you go through this river, and then really steep pulling up the hill. We only just got up there with the tractor, the ute going flat out.
Here we go again.
With the car, with the Prius, we towed a trailer, a lot of the other stuff. We had to load all the wheel weights in the front of the car, because the front-wheel drive to give it a bit of traction.
really had to take it at a run to get through the creek, getting out with the tractor on the back.
Yeah, it was a bit hair-raising.
Because if you started going backwards, you'd just lose control. The trailer would start driving the car.
And we couldn't really drive the tractor up there because it didn't have any brakes. We've sussed out by now, a bit later on, we've sussed out how to start it, we think, because of the distributor cap. Got a new distributor cap.
After we put also the kind of contact distance thing, you know,
The points in the distributor, getting them the right distance apart. But I think also the brass screws were worn out.
After we put half a can of Aerostar in it.
Yeah, poor old tractor. These tractors have got what's called a dead PDO, so with the modern tractors you've got a separate clutch for the PDO, but these have got the one clutch for everything. So you sort of got to be going backwards, lifting up, driving it backwards and lifting up the PDO. I'll put it down on the ground for the brake again.
Put the brakes down there.
Otherwise we'd be in the neighbour's property. So there we've got one wheel done. I think we've still got to do the other wheel.
We did the other wheel, yeah. And
Great.
that's the end of it.
That's great, I think, the way we're doing it, as long as you can organise it all.
Thanks for watching.